how do you create urgency in the sales process? Want creates urgency, nothing else. If I want something, I don't let it slip because I want it. If I'm like trying to buy it, it'll slip because it's not a want yet.
You also said a really important little jujitsu move there. Ask them why they want it. Ask them to outline the problems. Ask them to tell you what is going to create that urgency. And then it's the seller's job to go and, stick a needle in that pain point over and over and over again.
We've all been here before. We've asked about a deal at the top of the pipeline every week throughout the quarter. Momentum looks good. All the buying signals are there. It's coming in soon. You've been assured and reassured. Then, with hours left in the quarter, the deal isn't in your pipeline anymore. I swear it was coming in. The laptop slams and the quarter is over. Short of goal. No champagne this time. That deal, it was make or break for the quarter. Now, you and your sales team are left trying to make up a gap on an impossible timeline. And you're left wondering, why did this deal slip?
I'm Kyle Coleman, Sales Pro turned SVP of Marketing at Clari. Run Revenue is the show where revenue pros learn to stop revenue leak, achieve revenue precision, and grow their companies and careers.
This is the Run Revenue Show with Kyle Coleman.
Slip deals are hurting every level of your organization. Reps miss quota, managers are left scrambling to backfill pipeline, and execs are left trying to explain where their biggest deals went. Deal slippage is what happens when deals you're counting on, committed opportunities, get pushed into next month or next quarter. Deal slip is a critical form of revenue leak. Revenue leak, if you need a little refresher, is the revenue that you've earned, but you haven't yet captured. And in this episode, I've got fellow sales pro Kevin Dorsey talking about the killers, interrogations, and paranoia that can protect you from deal slip. There's also a checklist to help you prevent revenue leak and give you an edge on closing your deals. Katie, for the people who have not met you yet or don't know you somehow, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What drives you?
Boy, who am I? I am a son. I am a father. I am a husband. I am a brother. I am a revenue leader. I am passionate about people and have been most of my life. I have almost always been like the team captain or the coach. And so I think a lot of that has served me well in my leadership career now. I've been building startup sales teams for the last 10, 11 years now, having a couple unicorns under the belt. And I think I'm kind of known as the builder.
I want to just double down on how you answered that question, which I think is so telling about who you are as a person. You didn't lead with what you do. You lead with what defines you. And you really focus on the person inside of the salesperson. So why? What has made you do that?
What's funny, and people that have worked with me know this about me. My favorite word is intention, and I'm a stickler on words. Your question wasn't, what do you do? Your question was, who are you? Right? And unfortunately, especially in the States, especially here, like when people ask you who you are, we're so tied to our identity in terms of our career that's how we answer. That's not who we are. That's what we do. And, I think I'm so passionate about it. And I don't know why this is a rare way to think, but if you think about this, right, we are people, our prospects are people, our people are people, our teams are people, that CEO is a person, right? Like everything we do revolves around people. And that's really been my big focus over the past, I would say, probably last 4 to 5 years of my leadership career is when I started to make this shift. And then I had actually started working with a coach about 1.5 years ago, and he said something that he changed my entire perspective. It's like, when you hire people for who you want them to be, right? You want them to be confident, be resilient, be gritty, be creative, be disciplined, right? Like you hire people for who you want them to be. But then when you get in your job, all you ever talk about is the how. How do you do your job? Right? Whereas Kyle, you lead people, think about this. If you could get your team to be confident, be disciplined, be resilient, be, excitable, be creative, be what would happen to the results if you could get your team to be those things? What would happen to the results?
Skyrocket.
Whereas if you put scripting on people that are not resilient, if you put coaching on top of people that are not coachable, it doesn't matter. So it's shifting that mindset of like, if we can help people be that way, the results take care of themselves. And that's been a big focus of mine.
We could spend all day talking about this first P in the 4 Ps that you talk about. You talk about people, process, pipeline, and performance. We're going to talk about the other 3 Ps today because it's 2023. I don't think it's any secret that the macroeconomic environment is a little dicey right now, and every drop of revenue counts. And I want to focus on this concept of slip deals. So, open-ended question for you here, KD. Why? Why does this happen?
Generally speaking, this happens because we lose sight of how people buy, right? So as sellers, we think so much about our sales process that we forget how people actually buy things, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that actually need to occur on the buyer side, right? We have all these sales processes. We have all these sales methodologies. We decide of like, what's the buying process, right? What's the buying methodology? And we're going to unpack all of this, but also as sellers, we forget that we sell this all day. The buyers buy it once.
Right.
And I think so often we actually assume they know how to buy this product way better than they do. And so I think that causes things to slip. But my biggest reason why I think deals slip, and we'll get into the sales process side, is we never actually ask and get commitment to that timeline. We say it's going to close, but we never actually ask the question, Kyle, can we get this done by next Friday? And then shut up and get the answer. So I'll pause there because we'll go back and forth on this. But I think those are the biggest, man. So we don't understand the buying process. We don't actually get commitment, and we don't actually make sure things happen in the order that they should.
Set the stakes here a little bit more. This is slip deals, or deals that reps are forecasting to come in, that managers, that VPs, that CROs are forecasting to come in. If that doesn't materialize, it's an enormous form of revenue leak. It's killing the sales funnel. Why is this so dangerous to a company?
So, the implications are massive, and I think even more so than what people realize. Is like, obviously, first, you miss your number, right? So, you're planning on X amount of deals coming in, and you miss the number. All right, that's obviously a big deal. That affects your fundraising rounds. That affects all of that. But what people don't understand about forecasting is oftentimes you're also budgeting against it. Your head count is focused on those forecasts. If we hit X forecast, we can afford to hire X amount of reps. So when we go to the board and ask for that amount of money to do it, and then we miss that forecast, right? We are either overhired or underhired. It also happens here. If we're talking about slip deals, but also people sandbagging deals, right? Where like more comes in than we're forecasting also isn't a good look. So it affects all of that, but also too, like it affects, I think, again, your integrity, like the belief people have in you. You tell people things are going to close and then they don't. You start to become like the boy that cried wolf, and people don't take you as your word anymore. So there's a lot of repercussions. You miss your number, you can't fundraise, you can go down rounds, all that can occur. You overhire, you underhire, all of that. And especially in sales, and we think we're the world. Okay. CS has to hire off our forecast.
Yes.
Marketing spend is based off our forecast, right? Like engineering, right? How much we can put towards development comes off our forecast. And if we miss, all of those dominoes start to fall the wrong direction. And now we're understaffed in CS, and then we hit our number, and now we're behind. All of it, man. It's really, really important.
When we're thinking about slip deals, we as leaders, we as managers, our inclination is to point our finger at the individual sales rep and say, you misforecasted. You allowed that deal to slip. You didn't manage the process correctly. But we all know that that is not the complete truth. The revenue is a team sport. It is very collaborative. It requires a whole host of people to run effectively. So talk to us from a managerial perspective, a frontline manager. First of all, what is their responsibility in preventing deal slippage? And then what are signs that they miss that allow deals to slip?
So I believe is the manager's job is to ask the right questions. That is our job. It's to ask the right questions to get the answers that we're looking for. So first, when it comes to forecasting, managers just don't ask the right questions, right? And it sounds a lot like this. Hey, Kyle, when's that deal coming in?
Right.
What's coming on Friday? Oh, awesome. Love it. And then they run off, they throw it in their commit bucket, right? They're like, okay, yep, no, Kyle just gave me that commit. So they're not asking the right questions, right? And then you go a layer deeper. It's like, okay, because this is how managers do this. Kyle, when's that deal coming in? Oh, it's coming on Friday. Awesome, great. Why? And the rep goes, oh yeah, they gave me their word. And the manager goes, okay, great. Like, this was hilarious, man. People talk about reps having happy ears. I think managers have happier ears than reps more often than not, right? But it's asking the right questions. But again, back to my first point, what tends to happen is they ask questions about the deal and not about the buying process.
Right.
Right? Whereas like, hey, it's committed for Friday. Great. Have they reviewed the contract yet? No. Then it's not committed for Friday because the certain things that need to be occurring have it. And that is how I do deal management, is certain things have to have occurred for it to be in a stage. Meaning, right, so a common stage on the sales process is negotiation, right? It's in the negotiation stage.
Yep.
Okay, well, a lot of things had to have happened before it even got to that stage. You might be negotiating. We might be negotiating right now, but it should not be in that stage if we didn't already get multi-threaded, if we didn't already get the sign-off from legal, if we didn't, like, it's checking those boxes as the deal progresses, and that's what the manager should be doing, is asking the right questions that the right things are occurring to be in a commit, right? That was always me, man. It's like, oh, this deal's committed. Bow, 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 bow. No, it's not.
Right.
I don't care what they told you. It's not closing this week because we haven't done these things.
So what you're describing here, Katie, is what we think of as a mutual action plan. A lot of companies will have this, and the right kind of sales leaders, what they'll do is they'll create the list of actions that has to happen mutually by the buyer and the seller that indicate intent, that indicate likely future success. With the right entry and exit criteria for every stage, with the right actions that have to happen. And now what the best sellers do is they share that list with their buyer to help control the buying process. Now, is every mutual action plan the same for company A, company B, company C? No, of course not. There are little changes and tweaks to make sure that you're being responsive to that company's buying process. But getting something in black and white, aligning on mutual expectations and holding each other accountable is a super important thing. That way, managers can actually pressure test.
And that's the thing, like, I love the concept of mutual action plans, but if we actually break down the words of that, right? You know, I'm a word stickler. Okay, first of all, mutual, right? Most mutual action plans are not very mutual. They tend to be very one-sided, right? Either it's all what the sales rep is going to be doing, or it's all the stuff that the buyer needs to be. So it is not mutual. We are not actually helping them buy. So the mutual falls apart. Now, next word, action. Okay, mutual action plan, right? So what are the actions that actually should occur? So here's a good one, right? Actions imply how to do it, not what to do. So if the action is review with legal, no. That's not an action, right? The action would be legal agrees to X term, and X term. Oh, and here's why they should, right? We're helping them take the action that's necessary, and then you get to plan. Right? And you just said one of like those magical words in leadership, right? Of like accountability. Any leader listening right now, and actually, you know what? Screw it. Sellers as well, because it applies to mutual action plan. You cannot hold someone accountable to something they did not agree to do. If they didn't agree to do it, there's nothing to hold them accountable to. So now a plan, this is what also, if you had to plan a building, if you had to plan a vacation, if you had to plan a trip, when, how, who, with what, for how long, right? That is a plan. It's the turn-by-turn directions, and normally those are missing too. All these mutual action plans out there are not mutual. They limit the action, and they are really bad plans. They don't get into the weeds enough on how to actually help someone buy.
Love that. Super helpful. And again, for anybody listening, if Katie just tore apart your mutual action plan, change it. Like, don't just listen to this and be like, oh man, I should, maybe think about it. No, take the action and make these adjustments, because this is not Katie's first rodeo. Been doing this for over a decade, has seen all of these mistakes happen in the field, in practice.
I can't help it because I'm going to throw it back to you because, ask questions. this is what's fun with you and I when we get to chat on this, right? You're a leader, but you're also a buyer. Have you ever asked for a mutual action plan as a buyer? Have you ever been like, you know what, sales rep, could you put together a mutual action plan for me? Have you ever gotten a mutual action plan that's like, wow, this really helped me in this process?
So you know what, Katie, I actually had the latter. Yes, I've gotten into scenarios as a buyer where the seller provides not, the detailed 50-point line by line of what has to happen, but it's, your top 5 or 7 things that she's going to do for me and I need to do for her. And it was actually really useful for me. And it wasn't, during the first discovery call. It was mid-stage once she had qualified and made sure that I was actually real, and then delivered it to me. And it was helpful for me to be like, okay, here's the timeline. Here are the stakeholders. She knows her stuff. And I'm not going to have to be the one that goes and makes this all happen internally. She's going to shepherd me through this process. And I appreciated that a lot, actually.
And that to me is where I wish more sellers went. That's not how most mutual action plans are built, right? It is actually should be simpler. It should be like, here's the checklist, but then you mentioned it in there. I said at the beginning, they helped you buy.
Mm-hmm.
What a lot of mutual action plans are around is like how to help them get through the sales process. It's not helping them buy, helping them get approval, helping them get it past legal, helping them get the CFO on board, helping them understand what onboarding will look like, helping them get in touch with former customers, current customers. Like, it needs to be short. And this is my personal is I love like this guided sales process, but I want my reps running most of that. Here are the things we need to help the buyer achieve. Whether that's in a mutual action plan we shared with them or not, isn't actually my concern as much as it is we're helping those things occur. Where are we at in that process?
One of the 4 P's we're talking about right now is process. Process is key, and unfortunately, a lot of leaders have some allergy toward processes. As a manager, again, putting on your FLM hat, your frontline manager hat, if you're inspecting deals, you started to get into this, but I'm curious to hear some questions that you ask to pressure test deals. And one thing I've heard from you is that you like to flip this on its head. And instead of asking, when is this deal going to close? Okay, end of week, great. You inverse it and you say, why isn't this deal going to happen? Talk to us about that.
Again, it's all about the questions we ask, right? If you ask the question why it will, your brain will come up with reasons why it will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I don't want those reasons. If we're pressure testing, I want to know why it wouldn't. What could get in the way? That changes how a rep thinks about the deal, right? What could get in the way? What are potential blockers? What would ruin this deal tomorrow? Okay. What if they're shopping us, right? You ask the inspection questions, right? But this is the key to a process. So I want to be very clear on this. A process has to be documented. So this is also the other part. When we're talking about this live, very rarely am I asking these questions in the deal review. These questions have been mapped already. You're bringing this deal already filled out.
Love that.
Right? Because in a one-on-one especially, depending on your sales org and how many deals in your pipeline, if we're honest, you can only cover like a deal in a one-on-one, maybe 2, where you know what questions I'm going to ask you. That's in our deal review doc. Have we checked these things? Now it's more so the rep. They're more empowered, so it doesn't feel like an interrogation. Or it's like ripping your deal to shreds. Like, no, like, okay, we're going to go through your deals in negotiation. And one of those questions for any deal in negotiation is, what would ruin this deal? You've already filled that out, so we can actually get into the weeds around it. But thinking through why a deal wouldn't will get you way more better, great English, Katie, way more better ideas on how to get ahead, right? Full circle back to our topic of slippage.
Mm-hmm.
Slippage is when something you did not anticipate occurred. Well, we need to be thinking about those long before we actually get to the end of the quarter and our fingers are crossed.
And there is a balance that has to be struck here of paranoia. There's a healthy amount of paranoia to entertain in your deals. You don't want to get to the point where you're crippled by anxiety about anything moving forward, but you want to be healthily paranoid so that you can take the right action, ask the right questions, do those types of things. And so if you are healthy in the way that you're paranoid, as a seller now, putting on your individual sales hat, what kind of questions are you asking your buyer to try and pressure test the buyer's seriousness and the buyer's intent?
Yeah. So the first question I'm always asking some version of is, do you want this? Like, do you want this? Right? And this is such a simple question that just gets skipped everywhere. Is closers, listen to me. Your job, your number one job is not to close deals. That is not your job. Your job is to make as many people as possible want what you have. If you focus on getting people to want what you have, the deals are gonna show up. When you focus on closing deals and running a sales process, things get stuck. So I'm always asking some version of like, so, wherever we are on the stage, hey, so let's get into pricing. Hey, cool, Kyle, we'll get into pricing here. But before we do that, is this something you actually want? Because if you don't want this, pricing literally doesn't matter, at all.
Right.
And I will say that. I'll coach my reps to say that because it's true. If you don't want this, I don't need to talk to your CFO. If you don't want this, we don't have to worry about legal. So I'm asking some version of that. Do you want this? And I'm listening for either a hard yes, soft yes, or a no, right? Generally speaking, you're going to get, if you've done a good job, a soft yes or a hard yes. Then I'm asking them, okay, so why? What problem do you think this will solve the most? Now who's selling who?
Right.
Now they're selling me. And this combo here, y'all, is very important as we keep going down this process, because now if you tell me you want it and why you want it, that mutual action plan is to help you get what you want.
Right.
You getting me in front of your CFOs to help you get what you want. I can connect it back to your wants, right? So I'm asking, do you want it? Why do you want it? Then, of course, now we're getting into some disco type things, but what's the impact of those things? I'm impact of not solving it, impact of solving it, all of that. So that's the first. The next, truthfully, dude, this is where, again, it starts to be more consulting. Is I'm very prescriptive. Hey, so Kyle, normally what happens next is legal gets involved. Who's the best person on your legal team to start working with on this process?
Great.
Or I'm asking those little bullet point questions as we go, but I'm guiding them. I'm not asking them, so who do we talk to next?
Right.
I'm no, I know who we should talk to next. Well, really, we should talk to our CFO. No, not until legal signed off on this, because your CFO is literally going to ask you, has legal reviewed this? And they're going to be like, no, and now we're playing, no, let's get legal first before we bother your boss.
What I like the most about this, KD, is a lot of people, they expect, in sales generally, they expect there to be some silver bullet, some perfect question to ask, some perfect process to run, whatever it may be, that's this is how I'm going to close this deal, or this is how the world-class sellers sell. But really, what you just talked about is just having this kind of swagger injection into your process to be look, do you want this or do you not? It's beautiful. But so now let's get back on the topic of slip deals. I've made you put on your frontline manager hat. I've made you put on your individual seller hat. Now, put on your exec hat, your VP of Sales. What is the executive's role in deal management, the executive's role in preventing deal slippage?
So a few ways. One is documenting this process. It's documenting this process. What are the things that I expect to be done throughout the deal to give me confidence in this number? So that's the first. Build that process, right? You and I have rapped about this. You manage processes, you develop people. People are unmanageable, period. People are unmanageable, right? We can't even manage ourselves. You manage a process, you develop people. So my first role, what is that expected process, and are my people taught how, why, and what it is? That's my first. My second is to truly understand the data. So I had 2 forecasts that I run with my team. One is mathematical, one is rep-led. Right? I have a mathematical forecast. Okay, pipeline value, strike zone, close rate, cushion. First, right, is my mathematical forecast. What do the numbers tell me I should be at? And then I'm comparing that to my rep and manager forecast. And if there's not a huge discrepancy, I'm feeling, if there's a huge discrepancy high, right? My mathematical forecast is telling me, 2 million and my rep forecast is coming in at 3.5. I need to find out why. The math tells me 2 should come in. Reps are coming in at 1.6. Why? What's different? And this guides me. Where are we in our stages? How are we checking those boxes and going through it? But mathematically speaking, if you've closed more than 200, 300 deals, you have enough math to give yourself a really strong feel of what should. And the strike zone, I'll talk about this real quick because not a lot of people use this terminology. A lot of people look at sales cycle, right? I look at win cycle. When do most of our deals close? One, because there's going to be a difference there. Your sales cycle, the way most people calculate it, right, is like total deals to either close one or close lost. There's going to be a difference. When do most of your deals close? So that's in my dash as the strike zone. That's something I pay very, very close attention to, is how much of my pipeline is within that win zone to give myself a stronger forecast feel.
That concept of the win zone is really powerful. And to summarize, as an executive, as a leader, you have this unbelievable ability to have a view into the aggregated data that describes your sales cycle or your win cycle. And it's up to you to understand that deal age, ASPs, deal velocity, all the different things that you need to consider in order to pressure test that bottoms up forecast that your sellers will provide. But something that I want to go back to the earlier part of your response there, Katie, which was you mentioned that you need to govern the processes that you create, and you need to ensure that your individual contributors and all your revenue team is collaborating properly. And that combination of governance and collaboration is really key. And especially on the documentation side, it's something that most sales leaders, again, have this allergic reaction to, where they just don't see the need or understand how important it is. But without documentation, you can't standardize, you can't scale.
Yeah, it's one of my, I've talked about this so many times now on webinars, a book that I think had quite possibly some of the biggest impact on my sales leadership career was the Checklist Manifesto.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with sales, but like that, the idea of documenting best practices, and salespeople and sales leaders, if checklists are good enough for brain surgeons, they're good enough for us. Any of y'all listening right now, like any of y'all took a flight recently, you know what your pilot does before every single flight? Checklist. That, right? Now, to your earlier point, doesn't mean you overdo it. It's not like, okay, signed in, okay, send first email, right? But a standard blueprint of what looks good, you have to. 80% of deals go about the same way. 80% of your closed loss are the same. What kills a deal 80% of the time. Yes, there's always that random 20% of like, oh shoot, new CEO. Yeah. That's in the 20%.
Right.
We can deal with that when it occurs. I want to make sure that 80% is happening the way it's supposed to happen. And bonus tip for leaders, this isn't just for us sitting in like an ivory tower to come down with. The first thing I'm looking at is like, who are my best closers? What are the things that they do? What are the things they get their customers to do?
Yep.
Ta-da, there's my checklist. I don't like, if someone is seeing success, that's all I need. Give me 6 months with a top performer. I will be able to replicate them within 80% across the org. Doesn't mean I can give them to 100% of that top performer, because the top performer knows how to do the 20%, the things that like are the extras. But if I can document what that they do 80% of the time, there's my checklist. Now we train on it. Now we practice it. Now we hold people to it. There we go.
One of many reasons we get along so well, just brothers in arms here, is the Checklist Manifesto, the book you referenced by Atul Gawande. I picked that up. I could not put it down. And it's driven the way I've thought about management, success individually as a team, etc. So we'll put it in the show notes if you want to check it out. It is a quick read, and it's extremely impactful, again, if you apply the concepts. So don't just read the book and put it down and be like, okay, I got it. You have to actually put it into practice.
Bonus tip there too, right? And this is, we were kind of hinting at it before. This is also truthfully what keeps you out of micromanagement. It feels like micromanagement when I'm sitting there grilling you about your deals. Whereas if you've already filled out that deal doc, it's not micromanagement, because before you even come to that one-on-one, you got to bullet point, send a follow-up video to the CFO. And that's blank. Guess what I don't have to say to you?
Right.
You can come into that saying, hey, it's a negotiation. I realized I haven't sent the follow-up video to the CFO, so I'm going to get that on the calendar for tomorrow. Good job. I didn't even do anything, right? As the leader, I didn't even do anything. All I get to say is, good catch. Let's get that done.
Bingo. And it's that kind of process governance that the best leaders implement and that the best teams abide by. And again, it's not to say that everybody's boxed in and you have a group of little mini KDs that are all executing things the exact same way. No, of course not. There's room for autonomy within the framework, and you have to find the balance. So let me switch gears a little bit, and another perhaps leadership angle to take, although I'll be curious to get your response to this. In a recent post, you talked about bringing customers into deals and bringing them in early. And a mistake I think that a lot of sellers make is they withhold customer references until some late stage, as if it's some give to get. Like, no, you can't talk to our customers until I know you're really a committed deal or something like that. But you have a very different take on how best to do this. So talk to us about it. How do you bring customers into deals?
As early and as often as I possibly can. There is nothing more powerful to me than a customer talking about how they use the product better, right? So if it's deal slip at the beginning, not at the end, we missed something early that caused this deal to slip, right? And so if I have a big disco call coming, I landed one, right? I landed one I'm bringing a customer to the disco call. I'm not waiting. And then I'm going to bring, based off that disco, where I find out, really your primary focus is you're scaling your team in a big way. I'm bringing a customer who scaled their team in a big way.
It's great.
To the demo call. And if I can't get them to the demo call, I can hit them up and say, hey, Kyle, I've got an account that I'm working with. They're really focused on scaling. Could you record a 90-second video for me talking about how you help scale the team using this tool? That'd be really helpful for me. If you did a good job selling Kyle the first time, he's going to say yes to that in a heartbeat. So now, hey, prospect, looking forward to our call on Thursday. Thought you might enjoy this video from Kyle. He actually did exactly what you're trying to do last year, and he just put some thoughts together for you.
It's genius. I've never had somebody proactively send me a customized, personalized, tailored video like that from a customer.
Here's who should be handling the objections, not sales reps. Right? You're never an objection from a sales rep to the prospect. They don't believe us. We're the salesperson. I've had customers run the demo wide early in the process.
The trend and the way that people buy is changing. The information that's available to people is way different than it was even just 5 or 10 years ago. And the role of users and real user reviews, real references, real testimonials is so much more meaningful than words on a website. And so you have to lean into that, and you have to, and I think you make a really important point here, Katie, which is if you ran the sales cycle right the first time, that customer is going to want to advocate for you. So it's a really, really important sort of virtuous cycle that you're going to be creating here by managing deals and managing people. So let me ask you one other question here. Let's talk about late stages where we see the deal slip, where, the pain is most. What kind of frameworks or processes would you recommend for late stage deal management?
When I'm at late stage, my first is checking the early stage. Did we check the bot? Did we miss anything along this path? That's my first look, because more often that we missed something early that we need to go back to. So that's my first. The second is actually what we were just talking about. It's what are the proactive things we should have done by now? Right? The deal's starting to slip, right? Have we done a customer referral? Even if they didn't ask for it yet, did we bring in any references? Even if they didn't ask for it yet, did we do an exec alignment offer? Even if they didn't ask for it yet, have we talked about payment terms, whatever it is? But the biggest, truthfully, is working with your champion or mobilizer of, hey, Kyle, feels like it's slipping. Feels like we're not on track anymore. Is this still something that you want? Right? We're coming back to that want, reminding them why. Y'all, real quick, buying sucks, y'all. It sucks. It's draining as a buyer, and especially you've been doing this now for 4 to 5 months. You're getting to the end. You're like, God, like that's y'all hear me? 4 to 5 months. That's 2 quarters. That's 2 quarters of my life I've been giving towards this deal as a buyer. I'm like, oh, do I even want to do this anymore? That's definitely there. But then 2, I'm okay like with a deal slipping. I'm not okay with losing a deal. This is also where we have to ask the question, is the deal slipping? Like I can't get it this month, but I can get it next month? Or are we losing the deal? Those are 2 totally different things to me. If we're losing the deal, it means they've lost sight of the problem, they've lost sight of the impact, they've lost sight of like the better future they're looking for. If it's slipping, it just means we're not helping them buy. There might be competing priorities. Like there might be, and that's okay. Like we get asked this all the time. It's like, well, how do we make it a priority? Shoot, like sometimes you can't. Like you can't. There are other things that are more important. If that's slipping, how can we reset expectations? How can we replan? How can we recommit? This is important. Like recommit from them. Hey, we were going to get this done. Oh, and this is another one. Take things off the table. This is a big one. If you're at the end, normally by this time you've done some negotiation at this point, you do have to take some things off the table. So that would be my biggest, man, is like the recommitment, but also start taking things off the table. But I'll wrap on this. Giving things away still don't matter if they don't want it. Hey, Kyle, this cigar cutter, I will sell this to you for $10. Do you want it?
I don't smoke cigars.
$8.
Still no.
Okay, hold on. I just spoke to my manager. I just sent him a Slack. We never do this. If you buy this cigar cutter from me on this call, I can give it to you for $5.
Whew, that is mighty tempting, but still no.
What if I got you in touch with a reference? Okay, are y'all getting this? Like, no, and that's what we do. Kyle doesn't want this because he doesn't smoke cigars. It doesn't matter. All the tactics, all the mirroring, all the flipping, all the Chris Voss, none of it matters if they don't want it.
Right. Man, so much wisdom here, KD. And one last little rapid fire question for you. You've already recommended the Checklist Manifesto. Give us a book recommendation, one for reps, one for frontline managers, one for execs, and maybe they're the same, but would love a little lightning round here.
So I'm going to go a route that I would go Methods of Persuasion by Nick Kalenda. Methods of Persuasion would be my one for the reps. For the managers, I would go Sales Manager Survival Guide by Dave Brock. It was mandatory reading for all of my managers. So that one for sure for managers. For VPs, this one, Cracking the Sales Management Code by Jason Jordan. But it says Cracking Sales Management Code. Like, it really is about org leadership and how to do bottoms-up, top-down type process creation. So I'd probably go that one.
Very good. Okay, and now plug yourself.
Yep, can find me on LinkedIn. I am at that stupid connection limit right now, so you can give me a follow there. I do have my own podcast, Live Better, Sell Better, and I do have a Patreon group to join as well. And depending on when this comes out, I am announcing a sales leadership course, and my book will be ready in the next.
Whoa!
Oh yeah!
Damn!
Inside scoop for you.
Awesome. Well, kudos, KD. Can't wait for that. Thank you so much for the time. This has been outstanding. Our audience is going to get a ton of value. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for tuning in to Run Revenue. We will catch you on the next episode.
Hell yeah! Appreciate it.
All right, Revenue Pros. The big idea I want you to take away from KD is this. Instead of asking why a deal is going to come in, ask why a deal won't come in. Deal slip is avoided with a little bit of healthy paranoia. Now, I promise you a checklist to help you stop deals from slipping, and if you check out the show notes, you'll find just that. So, one more huge thank you to KD for all of his wisdom. Take what he talked about today and apply it to your business to keep your deals from slipping away.
Don't let what you heard today go to waste. Take 2 seconds to check out the show notes to learn more about stopping revenue leak and achieving revenue precision. The content is always free, never gated. You will not become a lead, and you're not going to get hounded endlessly, we promise. If you like what you heard, be sure to give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. We'll be back next time with more tips to stop revenue leak and get you running revenue like a pro.